Well, you heard a lot of heavy things last night from me, so I'd like to kind of change that a little bit and look at the lighter side, if I may, and see if we can all rejoice a little more in what we know and what we understand to be the truth and what we practice or what we do. Yes, it's true. We are Bible students. Brother Bob Ranconier had this particular subject selected, so I thought that I'd stick with it because he wasn't able to be here today, as you all know. And I stayed with that subject since I was asked to do it in his stead. But don't expect as good a discourse as he would have given. As I said, you heard some heavy stuff last night, and I just wanted to give you a brief situation of Brother Bob. He did have a heart attack. It was a rather serious heart attack, but he's recovering from it. He's also got cancer, as you all know, and his wife has got Alzheimer's. She's in later stages. So my thought is that he has some real important work ahead of him. But I'd like to lighten the load a little bit and talk about the wisdom of some young children. And I wish there were some more children here this morning. 10 minutes? Can I stall for 10 minutes? Is that okay? About the wisdom of young children who have written letters to God. I don't know how they're going to get delivered, but they had written them anyway. My daughter sent me a copy of these letters back in 2007. They're pretty interesting. So I'll get into them right away. The first child to write a letter to God is Jane. We're not going to work with any last names. There may be a Jane out there. She says, "Dear God, instead of letting people die and having to make new ones, why don't you just keep the ones you got now?" I think that's pretty thoughtful. And you know what? He may do something like that, right? And she's testing God, I guess, but she doesn't realize it or not. But that's exactly what she's thinking. And she writes a letter to God. Why don't you just keep them now? Makes sense. And this is Neil writing the letter. "Dear God, I went to this wedding and they kissed right in the church. Is that okay?" Wow. It's interesting that he didn't go to the minister to ask that question. He didn't even go to his parents to ask that question. He decided to ask that question of God. Is that okay? Because he probably heard a lot of things that you're not supposed to be doing. So he was trying to be very careful. I like this one. This is Ruth M. "I think the stapler is one of your greatest inventions." She must be going around stapling everything. Jennifer writes, "Dear God, in Bible times, did they really talk that fancy?" I bet you she's got the King James Version, because the others are not quite that fancy. But notice she said in the Bible times. So she recognized that there was a time the Bible was important. And this is from Ellie. "Dear God, I think about you sometimes even when I'm not praying." Wow, thoughtful. God is probably happy to hear that. "I wonder what he thinks about." And this is from Robert. Dear God, I am an American. What are you? Good question. He's thinking, right? He's probably universal, but the universal church is not all that popular right now either. This is from Joyce. Dear God, thank you for my baby brother. What I really prayed for was a puppy. Pretty close. Nan. Nan writes a little bit longer letter. Dear God, I bet it is very hard for you to love all of everybody in the whole world. There are only 4 people in my family, and I can't do it. She's honest. This is Ginny. I'll tell you later why I'm doing this. But this is Ginny. It says, Dear God, please put another holiday between Christmas and Easter. There's nothing good there now. You know, if you're a steady churchgoer and you go every Christmas and every Easter, I can see where there wouldn't be anything good there now. And this is a good one too. This is from Mickey D. Not Mickey McDonald, but Mickey D. If you watch in church on Sunday, I will show you my new shoes. So he wants God to watch his new shoes. Good idea. And this is Denise now. She's really thinking here. Dear God, if we come back as something, doesn't know what, please let me not be Jennifer Horton because I hate her. She's thinking ahead. Okay. This fella's had some studying too. This is Chris. God, this is not dear God, it's God. I would like to live 900 years like the guy in the Bible. He doesn't know what he's asking for, but 900 years. What did Adam live? 930, right? And Noah, 950, is that right? And Methuselah, 69 years, longest lived. When you think about it, Adam received punishment. He had to work for a living every single day for his 930 years. Wow. That was part of his punishment. Say again?
And no retirement.
Yeah, no retirement, right. Absolutely. Dear God, I like this one. If you give me genie lamp like Aladdin, I will give you anything you want, except my money and my chess set. That's Raphael. So this anything is very limited. Donna writes, we read Thomas Edison made light, but in Sunday school they said you did it. So I bet he stole it, your idea. Tell it like it is. Dear God, this is from Jonathan. If you let the dinosaur not extinct, we would not have a country. You did the right thing. I guess God is assured by him that he did the right thing. There's only a couple more you got to bear with me. Dear God, this is from Peter. Please send Dennis Clark to a different camp this year. I think Dennis Clark may be a bad apple, or he had a tough experience with him. And our last one. This is from Larry. Dear God, maybe Cain and Abel would not kill each other so much if they had their own rooms. It works with my brother. Okay. These letters that we just read come from little children, old enough to write, but not yet able to decipher all the things by themselves. They need some training. For their sake, parents cannot afford to neglect the training and let their Sunday school educate you. This is very, very important. Oh, here he is. He missed it. Want me to repeat it again? No, this is very, very important that we do our job. This is our primary job. Is it easy? No, not by any means. Have I failed? Yes. Some of you might have also. It's not enough to study the Bible and educate ourselves in the parousia and epiphany truths. We need to give our children a thorough background on what? And my thought is, and I think that Pastor Russell has mentioned this quite a few times, we need to give our children the plan of God. At first you make it very simple, and as they grow you can fill in all of the blanks. But they do need it. Not that these letters are particularly bad, but they would probably come up with a little better letter if we did the proper job of educating our kids. If we are truly Bible students, we have to share what we learn, right? They can understand the basic plan of God from a very young age and do not need to be taught disconnected Bible stories written and designed strictly for the little kids. That actually serves to confuse them. And I think the adversary had something to do in that area. You know, we just repeat these Bible stories as if they were kind of a fantasy and they were not real. So, you know, swallowed by a great fish and all these things that you, and how do these young kids actually get these understanding of what you're trying to tell them, if that's what you teach them? Their stories are the adversary's work to make the Bible appear like it's fiction. Both parents should take the time to teach the divine plan. That's to their children or whoever else they may be able to teach. But if only one parent can, that'll have to do. But this job cannot be neglected. To be successful at this, great patience and tolerance will be needed, which is also good for you if you learn patience and tolerance. The Apostle Paul, in his epistle to Timothy, it's Timothy again, he recognized that Timothy was trained in the home, in private, by his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. And that's a good thing. He had a good background. This gave him a lot of responsibility in his later life, because Paul continued to instruct him as he progressed. In fact, it appears that he made Timothy a bishop by the apostles. Now the thing is to remember that the original bishop that he's talking about really didn't have a titled high position. It was more a humble servant, such as, I think, Pastor Russell and Brother Johnson and Brother Charlie and so on. My study Bible explains that there has never been a time when the nominal churches have been free from false interpretations of the Word of God. Never been a time. And you know this for a fact because the Apostle Paul had to instruct the Corinthians, the Ephesians, Brother Timothy, and so on. He had to instruct them all. So there's never been a time when he's been free from error. So Paul vigorously attacked these errors and point out their essential falsity as judged by the scriptures, what they actually say, or what they actually teach. What was true at the time of Paul and is now true today. All sorts of erroneous teachings regarding the Christian doctrine exists as it exists, and there never was a time when it was more imperative that the followers of Christ, the students, be thoroughly versed in the scriptures and grounded in these fundamental truths. If the children are misled early in their life, they will have a difficult time accepting the truth. And it can be proven by me, because I had a difficult time myself. We lack the effort in that responsibility. The Christian doctrine has to be thoroughly studied first before you can go out and teach. Without such grounding, you have to be grounded in the truth. Without such grounding, there will be danger of being tossed about by every wind of doctrine as it blows by. What is needed is instruction in these vital truths that are only true, not only true, but they have to be understood as intelligent. These truths are truly intelligent. They make sense. They connect everything. Our children need that. These truths need to be presented in a way that will soundly and intelligently be convincing as to what the Bible actually teaches. The instruction that Timothy received from the Apostle Paul is that he be a student of the Word and divide it, 2 Timothy 2:15. I'm hung up on that. And divide it rightly, analyze and interpret it, and properly. This instruction is very, very much needed in our day, right now, and especially now. We're coming near the end of that time. It would be nice if we understood it. The more understand it, the better it is for us. This is a Bible student's responsibility. If you're going to study strictly for yourself and not pass it on, you're not doing your job. Pastor Russell and Brother Johnson passed on their very accurate understanding of the Bible, did they not? We, being Bible students, must do the same, even though this can be a very difficult task. I can talk about this a little bit because it's reference to my neighbors, and you don't know them, so there's no effect that they will have from me telling you what's happening. A neighbor of ours, a young lady, she's 44 now, but she had a brain tumor, cancerous brain tumor, at the age of 28. For the longest time, they couldn't do much about it except treat it through chemicals and radiation or whatever. Then they decided that they would operate because the tumor was not being minimized by the other methods. So when they did operate, they put her in a wheelchair, permanent, because she cannot use her limbs to much extent. And all of her life, she was brought up without the Bible. Now, at this point, she can't fend for herself, so her father moved in with her. He had the responsibility, but he wasn't being very religious at the time, so he didn't fulfill that responsibility. Now, presently she wants to learn about the Bible. She attended church for a while, but they weren't very helpful as far as teaching her to understand the Bible. They probably didn't want to take the time in her condition to do it. I don't know. Her brother, a younger brother, got himself into a lot of hot water with drugs and alcohol or whatever, and he now wants to make amends in his own life and also towards the Lord, which is a good thing. And her father had been away from the study for quite a while. Now he wants to learn about the Bible, but he joined a nominal church and he accepted what they taught for a number of years. And now he's got questions, but he doesn't like the answers. When he asks about eternal torment, and he's told that no, well, he's Baptist church, and they're strong in eternal torment. You kind of pull the rug out from under them. So now she wants to learn about the Lord for the first time, understand the Bible. Her brother has some learning on his own, and he wants to learn the correct thing, and the father wants to influence them with what he knows, with the error. So for whatever reason, they came to me for help, and I don't really know how to handle that situation. They don't want to study together. It's kind of a disjointed family. They don't want to study together, but she wants to learn the basics. She doesn't know Genesis from Revelation, and she doesn't know anything in between. And her brother knows a little bit about the Bible, but he's got some wrong ideas that need to be untaught. And the father is just asking questions, but not believing answers. So this is a situation that I'm dealing with right now, and I need help. It is a dysfunctional family. I want to fulfill their needs, but maybe prayer will help. Now back to Timothy for a moment. Timothy's great business was preaching the word, and he has done it with true and efficient manner, and by diligence and prayerful study. He understood the word. Hence Paul's injection, study to show thyself approved unto God, workmen that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That's 2 Timothy 2:15. And in the next verse, or the RV of the version, says it, give diligence to present thyself approved unto God. A little bit different. A workman that needeth not be ashamed, handling aright the word of truth. The word will be inadequately preached by him or who is not an earnest, diligent student of it, and is not properly prepared, nor approved unto God. How do we know that we're not in that position? Well, we don't. But we have to look into the Word every opportunity. Shame on us if we teach error. And hopefully we're not doing that. But error is very, very well accepted and readily accepted by most out there in the world. The truth, not quite so much. Proper preparation is absolutely necessary. There's a vast difference between superficial handling of a text and preaching than what that is rich and profound in the biblical exposition. The latter stirs the soul to its depths, while the former leaves one cold and unmoved. You have to kind of study that to see that as a truth. Cold and unmoved? No, they're accepting it. But it does not mean total faith in it. They're accepting it, but they really don't have faith in it. We have 6 beautiful parousia volumes, and we have 17 epiphany volumes, which tell God's divine plan in its entirety, in detail. And beautifully, too, in every detail. And you can go as deep as you want to get. And they are given to us by God and His Son through these servants that we all know and love. And it was not meant that we keep this to ourselves. It was never meant that way. We can talk amongst each other at these meetings, but we cannot keep it to ourselves. There are many ways in which we can engage ourselves in teaching the Word of God. But we must keep our eyes and ears open for these opportunities, or to have them in season for the listener. It could be in season for you, but if it's not in season for the listener, you haven't accomplished much. It is getting harder and harder to seize these chances or these opportunities. Therefore, we kind of have to be clever and alert all the time, every opportunity. And the question form always works, not always, but most of the time works. Asking the right question at the right time is a gem. It truly is a gem. It gets that listener to think that maybe they don't have it all together as well as they. So you have to take that opportunity whenever it comes up, and it has to be in the listener season. And it does us very little good, or the world little good, to harbor this Word of God, God's great plan, just strictly for ourselves. But we must be warned that what we teach is truly, truly the Word of God, and really already doing that, but we must have the Bible as what? As a touchstone. Always refer to the Word of God. Always. Let him know that he which converteth a sinner from the error of his ways shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins. How much time do I have left? 0? Uh-oh. I better go on. I was going to talk about that, hiding the soul from death and all that, and hiding sins. But, well, there are lots of Bibles out there that will, in Ezekiel, where it says, save the soul sinneth, it shall die, and so on. Well, they have changed these to make it the person instead of soul. But one place they haven't changed it is in James 5:20. They forgot to change that. And that says soul from death. So a soul can die. But that's not what they know. Though it may be difficult, we must be alert to watch for the opportunity to reach out to our neighbors, family members, friends, associates, relatives. When you do that, you leave yourself wide open for criticism. Oh, one of those. Don't ask him any Bible questions. He'll never let you alone. Well, I had a few other things, but we're not going to get into all of that now. It is our task. It really is our task. Jesus sent his disciples out to preach the word, and they had to do that to fulfill that mission. And he's doing the same thing for us. It's our task. If you're going to be a Bible student, you better go out and preach the word. And first learn, then teach. And may the Lord add his blessing.